The dynamics of emotional baiting, a comprehensive psychological analysis. Introduction: Unmasking emotional baiting. Emotional baiting represents a deliberate and calculated psychological maneuver, extending far beyond simple annoyance to constitute a strategic act of provocation. At its core, emotional baiting is defined as an intentional effort to elicit a specific emotional response, often anger, aggression, or distress, from another individual. This is not a random outburst, but a purposeful action designed to manipulate and control the target for the baiter's own advantage. The strategic nature of this behavior means it is employed with a clear objective, rather than being a mere accidental or impulsive act. This understanding is crucial for individuals who are targeted, as it allows them to depersonalize the attacks, recognizing that the baiter's actions are part of a larger agenda, rather than a reflection of the victim's inherent flaws. This awareness is a vital first step in preventing the internalization of provoked emotions and resisting the manipulation. As a fundamental form of psychological manipulation, emotional baiting operates within a broader spectrum of behaviors aimed at exerting undue influence through mental distortion and emotional exploitation. The insidious nature of emotional manipulation often makes it challenging for victims to identify and resist, as it can subtly erode their sense of reality and self-trust over time. This suggests that emotional baiting can serve as an entry point, gradually conditioning an individual to accept further control and a diminishing sense of self. Recognizing emotional baiting early is therefore critical. It functions as a warning sign that a deeper, more pervasive pattern of psychological abuse may be at play or is being initiated. Early recognition empowers individuals to intervene or disengage before the manipulation escalates and inflicts more profound damage on their mental well-being and sense of self. Ultimately, the goal of emotional manipulation, including baiting, is to seize power and control within a relationship, systematically undermining the victim's self-esteem and internal compass. It's sixth, the arsenal of emotional baiting, tactics and manifestations. Emotional baiting manifests through a diverse array of tactics, ranging from overt provocations to subtle, insidious psychological manipulations. These methods are strategically chosen to exploit vulnerabilities and achieve the baiter's objectives. Direct provocations, instigating conflict and belittlement. Direct baiting involves explicitly saying or doing things to provoke anger or annoyance. A common approach is the deliberate instigation of arguments, even over trivial matters, as a means to create chaos and assert control over the interaction. Beyond narcissism, other cluster B personality disorders, including borderline, histrionic, and antisocial personality disorders, are also associated with a propensity to instigate conflict for reasons such as control, validation, or even amusement. It is important to note that individuals with borderline personality disorder, BPD, may also engage in behaviors perceived as emotional manipulation, including baiting others into anger. However, for individuals with BPD, this behavior often stems from overwhelming internal distress, intense fears of abandonment, and profoundly disordered coping skills, rather than a malicious intent to control. This distinction is vital for both victims and mental health professionals. While the harmful impact of the behavior remains the same, regardless of the baiter's underlying diagnosis, understanding the potential for deep-seated emotional pain in a non-narcissistic baiter might inform different approaches to managing the relationship. It could suggest that if the baiter is willing to seek help, therapeutic interventions focused on emotional regulation and attachment might be beneficial, offering a pathway to healthier communication patterns. Underlying vulnerabilities and attachment patterns. Narcissistic traits themselves are often linked to dismissive avoidant or fearful avoidant attachment styles, where vulnerability is perceived as a significant threat. Early experiences of deprivation and conditional love can severely undermine a person's capacity to form genuine, authentic connections. Individuals with anxious attachment styles are more prone to protest behavior, which can include exaggerated emotional responses, e.g., sobbing, rage, or passive-aggressive communication, e.g., silent treatment, veiled "I'm fine" statements. These behaviors are often unconscious attempts to elicit attention and reassurance, even if they inadvertently create conflict, serving as an indirect way to communicate unmet needs. Sad phishing, a form of emotional baiting on social media, has been specifically associated with anxious attachment styles and a perceived lack of social support. The concept of the multi-generational transmission process, which posits that families pass on behaviors and relationship patterns across generations, combined with the detailed understandings from attachment theory, suggests a profound, systemic root for some baiting behaviors. Unresolved trauma and unhealed emotional wounds from childhood can lead individuals to develop defensive mechanisms and struggle with deep emotional intimacy. This implies that some baiters may be unconsciously replicating dysfunctional patterns learned in their formative years, or desperately seeking to fulfill unmet emotional needs from early life, even if their methods are destructive to current relationships. This deeper understanding highlights the importance of exploring intergenerational patterns and attachment styles in therapeutic contexts for both individuals who engage in baiting, if they are willing to seek help, and those who are susceptible to being baited. It provides a framework for addressing the root causes of manipulative behaviors and the vulnerabilities that make individuals susceptible to them, offering a path toward breaking cycles of unhealthy relational dynamics. IV, the toll on the targeted, psychological and relational impacts. Being subjected to emotional baiting inflicts significant psychological and relational harm, ranging from immediate emotional distress to severe, long-term trauma. Immediate emotional and cognitive responses. When an individual is subjected to emotional baiting, it can trigger a cascade of immediate negative emotions. These often include anger, frustration, sadness, confusion, guilt, shame, fear, powerlessness, and hopelessness. These emotional responses are frequently accompanied by acute physical symptoms such as frequent crying, moodiness, unexplained aches and pains, difficulty concentrating, and muscle tension. From a neuroscientific perspective, provocation activates the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, triggering a primal fight-or-flight response. This physiological reaction can narrow cognitive focus and promote rigid, habitual thinking, making it difficult to respond rationally in the moment. This understanding of the physiological hijack validates the victim's experience, explaining why it is so challenging to not take the bait or respond rationally. It underscores that resisting baiting requires more than just willpower. It necessitates strategies that address both the psychological and physiological aspects of the stress response, such as mindfulness and grounding techniques. Long-term consequences: erosion of self-worth, trust, and mental health, anxiety, depression, PTSD, CPTSD. Prolonged exposure to emotional baiting and manipulation can lead to severe and enduring psychological and physical consequences. Erosion of self-worth and identity. Chronic emotional manipulation profoundly impacts a victim's self-esteem, leading to feelings of inadequacy and dependence on the abuser's validation. Victims may experience a complete loss of their sense of self, doubting their own judgment and abilities, which can make it exceedingly difficult to leave abusive relationships. Trust issues. Past betrayals, deceit, and manipulation create deep-seated trust issues, making it challenging for victims to trust others in new relationships, and often leading to self-isolation. This can result in difficulties forming and maintaining healthy connections in the future. Mental health issues. Prolonged exposure to emotional baiting and manipulation can lead to severe mental health consequences, including chronic anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, or complex PTSD, CPTSD. CPTSD is particularly associated with ongoing, prolonged trauma within interpersonal relationships where escape is difficult. Physical health problems. The chronic stress induced by emotional abuse can manifest in various physical health issues, such as persistent headaches, chronic fatigue, digestive problems, e.g., IBS, muscle tension, and sleep disturbances like insomnia and nightmares. The extensive list of severe and long-lasting psychological and physical consequences unequivocally demonstrates that emotional baiting is not merely a minor annoyance, but a significant source of trauma. The specific mention of complex PTSD, CPTSD, which arises from prolonged and inescapable interpersonal trauma, underscores the severity of the impact. This implies that the emotional and psychological toll is comparable to other forms of chronic abuse. This reframing of emotional baiting as a potential cause of trauma necessitates a trauma-informed approach to support and healing for victims, indicating that simple advice like just ignore them is insufficient. Instead, comprehensive therapeutic interventions are often required to address the deep psychological wounds inflicted, impact on relationship dynamics and future connections. Emotional baiting and manipulation can fundamentally alter an individual's relational patterns, making it profoundly challenging to form balanced, healthy connections in subsequent relationships. Victims may develop maladaptive coping behaviors, such as becoming overly compliant or excessively defensive in interactions. The repetitive cycle of abuse and manipulation can foster codependency, where the victim becomes overly reliant on the abuser or struggles to function independently. The concept of multi-generational transmission of family patterns highlights how learned behaviors and emotional responses can be passed down. When combined with the long-term relational impacts of emotional baiting, a clear ripple effect emerges. Unhealed trauma from emotional baiting can impair a victim's ability to trust, set boundaries, and communicate effectively, potentially leading them to either repeat unhealthy relationship patterns or become susceptible to further manipulation in new relationships. This suggests a systemic issue that extends beyond the individual. This broader implication underscores the societal importance of addressing emotional baiting and its consequences. Unaddressed trauma not only harms individuals but can also perpetuate cycles of dysfunction across families and social networks, affecting future generations and contributing to broader relational challenges within society. Table 2. Short-term and long-term psychological impacts on victims. Impact category. Short-term effects, long-term effects. Emotional, anger, frustration, sadness, fear, shame, guilt, powerlessness, hopelessness, frequent crying, moodiness. Low self-esteem, loss of sense of self, emotional numbness, chronic anxiety, depression, mood swings, anger outbursts, self-doubt. Cognitive, confusion, difficulty concentrating, rigid thinking, questioning perceptions, memory, brain fog. Distorted sense of reality, impaired judgment, difficulty making decisions, cognitive distortions. Behavioral, fight or flight response, reactive abuse, overcompliance, excessive defensiveness, social withdrawal. Codependency, repeating unhealthy relationship patterns, difficulty functioning, e.g. work, social, self-destructive behaviors. Physical, unexplained aches and pains, muscle tension, rapid heart rate. Chronic pain, chronic fatigue, digestive problems, e.g. IBS, sleep disorders, insomnia, nightmares, weakened immune system. Relational. When dealing with emotional baiting, it is important to redirect focus to one's own goals and priorities, rather than getting entangled in the baiter's drama. A nuanced approach to communication is vital. If the baiting is not malicious, but stems from a lack of direct communication skills, e.g. in anxious attachment, validating the underlying emotion rather than the flawed logic of the bait can be constructive. For instance, responding to, "Why do you never listen to me?" with, "It sounds like you're feeling unheard," can shift the dynamic. This highlights a critical distinction. Emotional baiting can stem from malicious intent, e.g. NPD, or from a lack of healthy coping and communication skills, e.g. anxious attachment, or general lack of tools. While the behavior of baiting might appear similar, the underlying motivation dictates the most effective response. For malicious baiting, strategies of non-engagement and strict boundaries are paramount. However, for non-malicious baiting, a more empathetic approach that validates underlying emotions and encourages direct communication might foster growth and repair. This nuanced understanding prevents a one-size-fits-all approach to emotional baiting, allowing individuals to apply appropriate strategies, avoiding overly harsh or isolating responses to those who may simply need to develop healthier communication patterns, while still protecting themselves from genuinely abusive intent. It emphasizes the importance of discernment in interpersonal dynamics. In healthy relationships, practicing active and mindful listening and engaging in open communication are crucial for fostering connection and preventing misunderstandings. Prioritizing quality time together and consciously limiting digital distractions are also important for nurturing genuine presence and connection in healthy relationships. Table 3. Key strategies for responding to emotional baiting. Strategy category. Specific action. Rationale, benefit. Self-protection. Recognize baiting tactics and baiter's intention. Identify manipulation. Avoid falling into traps. Emotional regulation. Don't take the bait. Stay calm and composed. Cut off baiter's supply. Maintain emotional control. Prevent physiological hijack. Boundary setting. Set clear, firm, and consistent boundaries. Use I statements. Learn to say no. Assert emotional autonomy. Protect personal space and well-being. Signal intolerance for manipulation. Communication. State truth once, if falsely accused, then disengage. Validate underlying emotions for non-malicious baiting. Practice active, mindful listening in healthy relationships. Avoid entanglement. Shift dynamic. Foster genuine connection. Prevent misunderstandings. Disengagement. Physically remove self from situation. End conversation. Limit engagement in drama. Protect personal space. Deny baiter desired reaction. Reduce exposure to manipulation. Self-care. Focus on self-care. Exercise, nutrition, sleep. Rediscover passions, interests. Rebuild physical, emotional, and mental well-being. Reclaim identity. Foster positive outlook. Seeking support. Seek professional help, therapist, counselor. Build supportive networks, support groups. Process trauma. Gain coping strategies. Receive validation. Rebuild trust. VI. Pathways to healing. Recovery and resilience. For individuals who have experienced emotional baiting, particularly when it has led to significant distress or trauma, the journey toward healing and recovery is multifaceted, focusing on rebuilding internal strength and external support systems. Rebuilding self-esteem and trust in self. A cornerstone of healing from emotional baiting and narcissistic abuse is the arduous yet vital process of rebuilding self-esteem. This involves regaining confidence and recognizing one's inherent value independently of others' opinions or validation. Emotional baiting, particularly when prolonged or narcissistic, systematically erodes a victim's self-esteem, making them question their perceptions and rely on external validation. The healing process, therefore, is fundamentally about reversing this external dependency and re-establishing an internal locus of self-worth. Part of this journey includes rediscovering passions, hobbies, and interests that may have been overshadowed or suppressed during the period of abuse. This act of reclaiming personal pursuits is crucial for rebuilding a sense of identity and fostering a positive outlook on life. Crucially, healing involves re-establishing and trusting one's own intuition and inner voice, which were likely undermined by the baiter's manipulations. This profound re-internalization is a journey from "what's wrong with me" to "what happened to me" and "who am I," independent of this experience. This highlights that healing is not merely the absence of abuse, but the active reconstruction of a healthy, resilient sense of self that is anchored internally and therefore less vulnerable to future manipulation. It emphasizes self-compassion and self-discovery as central to recovery, developing adaptive coping mechanisms and self-care. A critical aspect of recovery is the development and consistent implementation of healthier coping mechanisms. Mindfulness and meditation practices are highly beneficial for stress reduction and emotional regulation. They help individuals break cycles of negative thoughts, observe their feelings without judgment, and calm their nervous system. Prioritizing self-care activities, including regular exercise, balanced nutrition, and adequate sleep, is essential for rebuilding overall physical, emotional, and mental well-being. The research explicitly links emotional abuse to a wide range of psychological and physical symptoms. The recommended coping mechanisms and self-care strategies, mindfulness, exercise, sleep, are not solely psychological. They directly address the physiological manifestations of stress and trauma. This underscores the profound mind-body connection in the experience of and recovery from emotional baiting, indicating that a holistic approach to healing is imperative. Recovery from emotional baiting requires attending to the entire self, mental, emotional, and physical, through integrated strategies that promote both psychological resilience and physiological regulation. This validates the physical symptoms victims experience and provides a comprehensive framework for self-care. The role of professional support, therapeutic interventions. Seeking professional help from a qualified therapist or counselor is strongly recommended for individuals who have experienced emotional baiting, particularly when it has led to significant distress or trauma. Several therapeutic approaches have proven beneficial in addressing the impacts of emotional abuse. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. This therapy helps survivors recognize and challenge cognitive distortions, unhealthy thought patterns, and develop relaxation techniques and coping skills for anxiety and self-doubt. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, a specialized therapy that helps reprocess traumatic memories and reduce distressing physiological responses associated with past abuse. Dialectical behavior therapy, DBT. This approach focuses on teaching crucial skills in mindfulness, emotional regulation, distress tolerance, and interpersonal effectiveness. Given the identification of emotional baiting as a significant source of trauma, including complex PTSD, the recommendation for professional support extends beyond general counseling. The consistent mention of specific, evidence-based trauma therapies, alongside the detailed principles of trauma-informed care, indicates that a specialized, sensitive, and holistic approach is critical for effective healing. Trauma-informed care, TIC. Trauma-informed care, TIC, is a comprehensive framework that acknowledges the widespread impact of trauma, recognizes its signs and symptoms, integrates knowledge about trauma into all policies and practices, and actively avoids re-traumatization. Its core principles include safety, ensuring both patients and staff feel physically and psychologically safe throughout the organization. Trustworthiness, transparency, making decisions with transparency to build and maintain trust. Peer support, integrating individuals with shared experiences into service delivery. Collaboration and mutuality, leveling power differences to support shared decision-making. Empowerment, voice, and choice, recognizing and building upon strengths and fostering belief in resilience and the ability to heal from trauma. Humility, responsiveness, recognizing and addressing biases, stereotypes, and historical trauma. This specialized, sensitive, and holistic approach is critical for effective healing. Participating in support groups can also provide invaluable connection, validation, and understanding from others who have shared similar experiences of abuse. Conclusion: emotional baiting is a pervasive and insidious form of psychological manipulation, deliberately designed to provoke emotional reactions for the purpose of control, validation, and power. It is not a random act, but a calculated strategy, often employed by individuals with narcissistic traits or other cluster B personality disorders, though it can also stem from deeper psychological dysregulation and unaddressed attachment vulnerabilities. The tactics employed range from direct provocations like belittlement and instigating arguments, to covert maneuvers such as gaslighting, negging, and the silent treatment, adapting across family, romantic, professional, and online contexts. The impact on those targeted is profound and far-reaching, extending beyond immediate emotional distress to long-term psychological and physical trauma. Victims frequently experience an erosion of self-worth, deep-seated trust issues, and a heightened risk of developing mental health conditions such as anxiety, depression, and complex PTSD. The physiological responses to baiting, including amygdala activation and fight-or-flight reactions, underscore the deeply destabilizing nature of this abuse. Unhealed trauma can perpetuate unhealthy relational patterns across generations, highlighting the broader societal implications of this behavior. Empowerment for those targeted lies in cultivating self-awareness and emotional intelligence, enabling them to recognize baiting tactics and understand the baiter's underlying motives. The art of non-engagement, characterized by staying calm and refusing to provide the baiter with the desired emotional supply, is a powerful countertactic. Establishing and consistently maintaining healthy boundaries serves as a crucial shield for emotional autonomy. Furthermore, a nuanced approach to communication, differentiating between malicious intent and a lack of skills, allows for tailored responses. For comprehensive healing, a multifaceted approach is essential, emphasizing the rebuilding of self-esteem, the development of adaptive coping mechanisms and self-care practices, and the critical role of professional support through trauma-informed therapeutic interventions like CBT, EMDR, and DBT. Addressing emotional baiting requires not only understanding its complex dynamics, but also committing to the holistic well-being of those affected, fostering resilience and promoting healthier, more authentic relationships.